Hey guys, I am doing an unusual live. Our power went out, I don't know, 10 minutes ago. I think it's getting really hot here, and for whatever reason, I think just, the power grid is overwhelmed, and everybody's air conditionings are on. So I am not doing it from my computer, this live. I'm doing it from cell because the Wi-Fi is not back up and I wanted to be on time. So while I wait for everyone to join the show, hello, friends. I'm trying to see if I can do the chat. Here we go. Super chat. There we go. Yeah, so I wanted to make sure I was on time with you guys because it's important that we stay consistent with these live streams on Superchat. And like I said, power went out, Wi-Fi is out until it'll probably go up again pretty soon, but I don't want to shift in the middle of the chat. I figured we'd talk a little bit about super PACs today because there's been a lot of news about people on the left starting super PACs and PACs and organizations. And I mean, there are four that come to mind in the last couple of weeks since Bernie bowed out. Chuck Rocha, who is was a senior advisor to Bernie, has started one. Jeff Weaver, of course, was noted that he started an organization, a super PAC, and Justice Democrats has started a super PAC, and then there's a new one from another group of individuals that were involved that is, I think, hosting a phone call right now. I don't really know how they're structured, though. I was trying to do some digging, but I couldn't find out. I know all of these people that are involved personally. I think they're all good people. I like, for the most part, I like most of them. But, we have to keep in mind that this is an industry. And I say this from the start because there's a lot of money in politics. And there are a lot of people who are operatives. And they will look for their next opportunity to grow a movement, to grow a group of, a movement, I'll say. But, movement doesn't come from operatives, it comes from activists. And so it comes from leaders, it comes from people who are involved in the community. And I think it's interesting because we have this pipeline issue right now where there are so many progressives who are running for office, but there isn't enough talent. And so with the Democrats, we're not capable of doing the last 25 years is running in races all over the country and recruiting talent to operatives and organizers to work on campaigns and be capable of winning races across the country because they just the Democratic Party didn't invest nationally. And so when you don't have a party that's investing nationally, is only focused on, winning a few races here and there and then flooding all the money into those races, and of course presidential races, you don't have an ecosystem of talent out there to support candidates running. And so it all has sort of stemmed from a few institutional organizations who push their consultants, their staff on races. I use the term they colonize races. Somebody might be running for office. They have their campaign. They've raised a couple $100,000. They have whatever path to victory, maybe the institutions think they have, and the institution gives an endorsement to the campaign. But then oftentimes they'll come in and say, oh, you need to change this up. You need to do this. You need to, you need to swap out campaign managers. Might be for good reasons, might not be for good reasons, who knows. But I do know several instances where very qualified, talented campaign managers from that area were swapped out for institution, campaign managers and consultants that are aligned with the institution. Sometimes there's actual financial rewards. Sometimes it's really about control and making sure that the campaign hires vendors that align with the institution rather than their own vendors. So it really does come down to this top-down control of candidates. And the fewer candidates there are, the more money that can be controlled tighter. It's not spreading around to other people. And there's less competition. But now the left has created a bunch of organizations. And I think for good reason, there is a debate over the left having super PACs. I'm on the board of a PAC. There's a big difference between a PAC and a super PAC. A PAC, you have limited financial contributions. You're limited to $5,000 a gift, and you can only give a certain amount of money to a candidate, topping at $5,000 for general and primary. campaigns. So you're very limited with a PAC. There are only so many ways you can give money when you're not a campaign. So if you want to give money or support candidates, you have things like the C4, which is allowed to do some electoral work, but most of it has to be educating work. But it's not, you don't have to disclose your donors. There are PACs where you do have to disclose your donors. It has to be published on the FEC filing, so it's fully transparent. And you are limited in how much money you can take and receive and give. SuperPAC is a whole other thing. That is where you can take corporate money directly. You don't have to disclose donors. You can raise funds from, individuals, corporations, unions. There's no limit on it, and that's why it's so dangerous. I think, Republicans were very good at using these shadow organizations that you don't have to disclose donors to fund their organizing on the ground over the last 10 years since Citizens United was enacted, I guess you should say. So I think it's dangerous for the left to have super PACs. I think it goes against our values. I think there's a very good case for that. And we have to keep in mind that people, they might be left, but power does this to folks. When you're close to power or you've been defeated by power, suddenly people they're rationalizing why they should create the left version of something. Well, I'm of the belief that we are not going to beat them at their own game. Just as Democrats aren't going to beat Republicans at the money game, they have to think about deep organizing and really investing in talent from the ground up. I don't think progressives are going to beat centrist Democrat neoliberals at their own game and Republicans. We have to do things in a different way. I don't think a super PAC, while unions can give money and they sometimes will have their own, that's fantastic, but that's a union. It's different. It is absolutely decisively funded by the membership of the union members. And that money, when a candidate receives union money, that is a collective of funds from members who are in that space, from the workers in that space. Whereas if you take one, patriotic billionaire who puts $5 million in a super PAC, and they might have the intentions of something, winning XYZ or putting these ads on TV, ultimately it's like, if you're not a democratically run institution, it really comes down to what the consultants say or the director of the PAC or whoever runs the PAC has to say. And, I think it's important to keep in mind, like, decentralized organizations are essentially a weapon against decentralized organizations. What makes one consultant smarter than a movement? And that, I think, ultimately comes down to it. A lot of these folks who are starting these organizations have a lot of choices in how they structure themselves. Do they want to just buy ads and make money off of ads? And be transparent about that. Don't pretend that you're going to suddenly win a movement of elections. It requires deep organizing to be able to fight back, and it's a long-term project. We don't just throw our hands up in the air and say, oh, well, let's just go make money now and use the progressive brand. I'm concerned. I mean, these organizations can also be fronts for other groups. There's partnerships with other groups. Who knows? There might be a neoliberal organization that says to one of these groups, guess what? We'll set up this super PAC. We'll throw you our corporate money. We'll throw you our money, and we'll work with you. And we'll share our email lists and our branding, and we'll be a unified front. We'll be unified, controlled opposition to the Democrats. I think the problem with decentralized organizations is it's very hard to control them. And unions are great because they are decentralized, but we really should study the union model. I mean, DSA, I believe in groups, I believe in grassroots organizing consistently throughout the year, but the fundamental issue with DSA is that there is a divide, it's a small divide, but over electoral politics, whether it works or not. And honestly, there's just a lot of new people to the process. So we're learning as we go. So, if you want to know the difference between a PAC and a super PAC, there's a very big difference. If you want to know the difference between a C4 and a super PAC, there's a very big difference. 527s, for instance, it can get complicated into electoral law, and I don't want to act like an elections attorney, but I do think it's important that we understand this is how corporate money floods our parties. And I think what's really concerning to me is it took like generations for, 10, 20 years for some of these organizations to slowly start trickling in corporate money. It takes, 3 years for some of these groups to do so? That's not good. So they should feel the fire. I think it's important to know who runs the super PACs. We should be asking these questions. Who's running it? Who's in charge? Who's the executive director? What experience does the executive director have? What money are you taking? If you're not going to disclose it, if you're not going to put it on your website, it takes a very industrious investigative reporter who can often hunt down the money. Not always, but can hunt it down. Okay, so you're going to buy ads with the super PAC, which is sort of the intention of super PACs. What kind of ads? What are you pushing for? What's the narrative? These are all valuable questions. And ultimately, I think there are a lot of institutions who are concerned about their viability and their fundraising. And it's harder to fundraise when you're constantly trying to build decentralized fundraising rather than just going to a very wealthy person or washing away, we call it progressive washing, like fighting for progressive issues 90% of the time. But then there's that 10% of the time when it's not controversial, people aren't looking, that you're not fighting. And now on that issue, you happen to be not fighting for something that maybe your donor advocated for. So we should be asking these questions. Again, I know a lot of these folks that started these organizations in the last few weeks. I'm not ready to comment on them. I don't have all the information. They haven't had their filings yet in the cases where they do have to file. But I do think it's important that the left demand these questions be answered. And sometimes there's nothing wrong. Honestly, it could just be we decided to set up our committee this way because it was the only way we could effectively buy ads to message for Medicare for all. But questions are good. Jumping to conclusions, bad. That's really, really important. I think what's odd is that they're being launched now. I think a lot of folks represent that they want to continue the movement. I believe in movement building from the ground up, decentralized. I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but I personally believe that organizations who are putting the work locally, training locally, are not getting caught up in petty drama that divides us, but really having systems in place that make you democratic. That's important too. Not every chapter of DSA is perfect. Not every chapter of our revolution is perfect. I think our revolution is criticized more than it deserves to because, fundamentally they were structured very democratically. And when you're structured democratically, there's often a lot of opinions. But other groups, they have no democratic structure. It's just 3 people in a room allocating the money in different directions. To who? To vendors they know, to, you have to think about these things. So this is why our channel exists. I want to be a resource to you guys and offer you experts in understanding how the establishment is structured, how the left establishment is structured, how the right is structured. I think this is a moment where we should be paying very close attention because Bernie Sanders was a great brand, and there are a lot of people who maybe weren't in the movement before 2016 or even before 2020, and that's good. We need to grow the movement. We need people to be excited about the platform on the left. But I have always thought that something that is not debatable is whether or not you should take that corporate money. And it's one thing to take endorsements from elected officials that might lean left but take corporate money or have had controversial votes to build a movement and to build a reputation of a candidate. But it's another thing if you're taking the Bernie brand and then taking the money. That's basically weakening the Bernie brand. I say Bernie because a lot of these people have worked in the Bernie universe or built their names or their organizations off of the 2016 election. So again, we just have to see. And I think it's important for us all. A lot of people are going to have hot takes and they're going to, be click thirsty. But the only thing I can say to you is pay attention to where the money is coming from. Pay attention to, coordination with other organizations out there. Messaging. Sometimes you'll see emails blasted out from a group that looks exactly like an email message blasted out from another group. Oftentimes they're coordinating on messaging. A group will endorse a candidate and then another group will immediately endorse that candidate. Sometimes it's coordination. That's okay. It's how we build coalitions, but pay attention to these patterns. This is how you start to understand the ecosystem. Ecosystem 101. And definitely, have fun on FEC filings. Those are fun. But again, ask the questions. If they have an answer, that might be enough. There might be a very real answer as to why somebody sets up a super PAC. But I think we have to ask questions, especially if it's coming right out of the Bernie campaign. If it's to register more progressive Latino voters, wonderful. Why was it a super PAC and not a regular PAC? And there are real answers to these questions sometimes. Sometimes it's just we had 4 options legally, and this is the only way we could work with candidates on the ground was to set ourselves up this way. Or it's the only way we could put on a conference was to set ourselves up this way. But I think we as a movement should be very thoughtful about our questions rather than canceling an organization, canceling a person, hot takes. We have to have a deeper understanding. I'm not seeing any comments. Let's see. Oh, there we go. I apologize, guys. It said I had Superchat on and then it didn't. All right. So with that, I am going to do another take this week on the right wing and how they're pushing to take over the progressive populist movement. I have a lot of thoughts on that, but that's going to be a longer conversation. So make sure to tune in on Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do a live chat. And then, we have a really great episode that's up this week. If you are not already liking and subscribing, make sure to do that and share. Please share. And if you're not on Patreon already, go to patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. That is where you're going to find the extended episodes. You're going to this is really cool. We got mugs. I'm mailing out mugs now. So if you become a patron, you can actually, we're putting up a website, so you can buy them directly off the website too. But we have mugs and bags and stickers. Can I show you my sticker? I think I can. Hang on. That is my sticker. It's getting dirty now, but this is what I do sometimes when I'm on the show. On the Majority Report, I start picking at that. It's not a great habit to have. But yeah, and we're thinking about doing a live show, so virtually, I should say, not like in person. Coming up with ideas for that because we want to make sure it's really fun and not just like a regular show, but something that if you get tickets, you're going to have a real fun, lively conversation. I don't know. We're trying to figure out how to do it technologically, but everyone's at home. We want to change things up a little bit and have a little bit of fun. So much love to you all. Stay safe. Stay healthy. It is very hot in here because the power went out. I'm hoping the Wi-Fi goes up next time around. I will hopefully have the Wi-Fi and we'll be doing this over the computer and I can be more interactive. But if I did miss your super chat, please email me. I promise. Email me at thenomikishow@gmail.com. I will answer it next time or over Twitter or Instagram Live. I'll figure something out, but it's because I can't see right now. I apologize, guys. All right. Take care. Much love.